Machine Sentry Next Generation.
Hello, and welcome to our first help video from the relaunch of Machine Sentry. This video is the first in a series of videos that will help you to familiarise yourself with the new Machine Sentry portal, from basics such as logging in to full data analysis. So let's start by logging in. Our URL is unchanged, so head over to portal.machinesentry.com. The login page is similar to previous, so enter your username and password here before clicking login. If you do not have a username or password, you should contact your internal supervisor who deals with Machine Sentry, or you can contact Machine Sentry support at support@avtreliability.com, who will be more than happy to help. The only other feature of the login screen is the forgotten password button. This will allow you to reset your own password via email in case you have forgotten it. Upon logging into the new Machine Sentry portal for the first time, you will be met with the Machine Sentry homepage. The homepage has a number of features which allow us to quickly navigate, create dashboards, and adjust personal settings. The toolbar along the top of the screen is fixed throughout the portal, so the home button on the left hand side will always bring you back to the home page. The administration button is used to adjust user and device details, something we will detail in a later video, along with the reports and user settings at the other end of the toolbar. One of the new features of the portal is the introduction of dashboards. Dashboards are now available across the portal, starting with the standard dashboard here on the homepage. As default, you will be presented with the News tab, which will display news articles from AVT Reliability, tips and tricks, which will help you to utilize the platform in different ways. Both of these sections will update and change day by day. There is also the stats, which will give you a quick overview of all the sites you currently have access to. You also have the default KPI gauges for asset health, schedule status, and points analysed. This enables the user to immediately view the asset health across the site that they have access to, which is based on whether there are any outstanding action notes against a particular asset. Schedule status displays a percentage across the organisation of how we are performing when it comes to collecting data, in line with our set data schedules. Finally, points analysed is again a percentage of how many individual points have been analysed within the portal. Below this, we have the new site picker. All sites that a user has access to will be displayed below this level. Simply clicking onto any of them will take us to the hierarchy. If you have access to multiple sites, you can use the favorite button at the left hand side of each site to display those at the top of the site picker to speed up the process. The user menu is held in the top right hand corner of the main portal toolbar. And as the toolbar is a constant feature throughout the portal, so is the user menu. Simply click on the name in the top right hand corner to reveal the drop down menu and the options within it. The first option allows you to change the language displayed on the Machine Sentry portal. We currently have 5 language options: English, French, Spanish, German, and Dutch. The portal will automatically pick up any of these 5 languages from the system, but if you want to manually change this, just select the language you require. The second option down allows the user to adjust between light and dark mode. Similar to the language above, the portal will automatically pick up the system settings, but again, this can manually be overridden at any time. This menu is also used to update your user password. Once selected, you will be asked to enter your old password first and then your new password twice. Passwords have to be more than 10 characters in length in order to be valid. Finally, the bottom option will log you off the portal. There is also an auto log off after 15 minutes of inactivity.
Machine Sentry Next Generation.
Machine Sentry navigation is still going to be based around a hierarchy structure, in line with ISO standards. However, we are no longer limited to just 7 strict levels in the hierarchy. We can now have anywhere between 5 and 10 levels to our hierarchy, dependent on requirement, which gives us flexibility at every level. We have also introduced new hierarchy icons. So as a default, you will see this icon for site level, this icon for area levels, and once you get down to asset, component and point levels, you will see the coloured condition monitoring or schedule icons. The higher level icons can be adjusted within the edit pages. Simply go to the 3-dot menu here and click edit and adjust the icon in the top right hand corner of the pane. Any ability to edit in Machine Sentry is dependent on access rights for each user. We have also introduced new ways to filter the hierarchy to ease navigation, allowing multiple options to be queried at any time to further increase flexibility and user friendliness. As you move through the hierarchy, you will see the dashboards on the right adjusting dependent on the level you are at. We will explain this further in a later video. Building the hierarchy in Machine Sentry is faster and easier than it has ever been before. The first thing to note when it comes to building in the hierarchy is that it is access dependent. If you feel you do not have the correct access level, please contact your Machine Sentry site manager or the AVT reliability support team. Now onto building. Once you enter a site from the Machine Sentry homepage, you will be automatically at the highest level of the hierarchy, the site level. To add an area below this, click on the 3-dot menu to the right of the site name and select Add Area from the drop-down menu. This will open a prompt window where you just need to enter the new area name and code. Once you hit Add, the new area will appear below your site in the hierarchy. Now that we have our new area, we have a couple of options. Firstly, I want to add further detail to said area if required, so highlight the new area in the hierarchy, go back to the 3-dot menu and select Edit. A pane will open on the right hand side of the screen where you can add further detail about this particular area, such as primary contacts, an image, whether there is an ATEX requirement here or just general notes. Once you have finished, hit the Save button in the bottom right hand corner of the screen. After this, we can either add another area below the new area, or we can add an asset. To add another area, you simply repeat the process we have just been through, but by selecting the new area first in the hierarchy. Once you are ready to add an asset, select the area where the asset resides in the hierarchy, select the 3-dot menu next to the area name, then select Add Asset. You will be greeted with a similar prompt window as before, but with a couple of additional fields. We first have to give the asset a name and code reference. This needs to be specific to that asset and clearly in line with the name and references used on site for easy identification. You will then need to select an asset type. So within the asset type box, you can search for whatever type of asset you are trying to add. In this example, we will start to search for a pump unit, and as you can see, as you start to type, various options will start to appear below. Once you find the type you are looking for, simply select it. At asset level, we do not have any templates to select from. This is only applicable to the component level, which we will cover in the next video. So once you have a name, code, and asset type, hit the Add button at the bottom of the window. In the same way in which we edited an area, we can go back into an asset once created to add further details such as model and serial numbers, asset categories, and asset criticality. Another way in which we can add levels to the hierarchy is by right-clicking on the hierarchy level and choosing the appropriate option from the drop-down menu. Whichever way you choose to enter is entirely down to user preference. Once we have our hierarchy built down to asset level, we can then add the component parts that we want to monitor on that particular asset. In this example, we will add an electric motor and then a pump to our pump unit from the asset build video. Firstly, we need to be at the asset in question in the hierarchy on the left pane in order to add a component to it. So start by selecting the asset. Then, use the three-dot menu next to the asset name to open the drop-down menu before clicking on Add Component. This will open a new window in the center of the screen in a similar manner to adding an asset into Machine Sentry. The first thing that you will be asked for is the component name and code. At component level, we recommend having a standard across the business for similar component types. So in this example, we will simply name the component electric motor with a code of EM. These naming references should be automatically added from the template. As this is being added to a specific asset, which in turn has a specific name and location, we can name components generically. Following this, we need to add the component type. So as you start to type in the field, Machine Sentry will open up a menu giving you various options based on the data that you have entered. So let's select electric motor. The next field asks for a template. Now this is one of the most important elements to adding a new component. We have a variety of component templates built into the Machine Sentry platform, and these will give you two key elements. One, they will give you a data collection point structure below your component, including both non-drive end and drive end bearings, unless stated otherwise, temperature points, and visual inspections as a minimum. This saves the user time in creating their own structure and just leaves the need to adjust accordingly if required. Secondly, we have the ISO 10816 standard alarms built into most of these templates, which gives us a baseline of vibration to work against once we start to collect data. So it is highly recommended to use the Machine Sentry templates. In this example, we will choose the rigid 1 to 15 kilowatt template, but please choose whatever power reference is appropriate to your component. Finally, we can add a lubricant type and specific lubrication in the final two fields. As you can see, the lubricant type is a drop-down menu with various options such as grease, oil, and aerosol to name a few. The final field allows the user to search for a specific lubricant. So if we start to search for Petro-Canada products, for example, it will give us all the Petro-Canada lubricants we have built into Machine Sentry. If you happen to have a lubricant that doesn't appear in this list, please contact support with the lubricant details, and we can add this into the platform for you to select in the future. For this demonstration, we will be adding a grease point and Petro-Canada Precision XL EP2 with the electric motor. Once the window is complete, click Add in the bottom right to save. As you can now see, this has been added below the asset we created earlier, so you can now repeat the process to add in the pump unit. From this, you can see just how quickly it can be to add a component into the software. Once both components are added, our asset is now complete, and you can see if we can open each component up, the point structure below them, which comes from the component templates. As we did with the levels above, we can go back into any component and enter edit mode to add further details about the component, as you can see here. We can also rearrange any components in the hierarchy by simply dragging and dropping them in the tree, but this function can also be performed in the asset edit screen, as you can see here. One final useful building tool is duplication. Once you've created an area, asset, component or point in the Machine Sentry hierarchy, you can use the duplicate feature to create an exact copy and move to wherever this may be required. Once you have selected the item you wish to duplicate in the hierarchy, go to the three-dot menu we used earlier and select Duplicate from the drop-down menu. This will allow you to then give the new copy a different code and name reference. Then once you hit Duplicate, you will have the copy available in the hierarchy. As with assets, another way in which we can add levels to the hierarchy is by right-clicking on the hierarchy level and choosing the appropriate option from the drop-down menu. Whichever way you choose is entirely down to user preference. It is recommended that when using Machine Sentry, you should use component templates to create point structures. However, a user can create their own points within the hierarchy structure. To do this, you must firstly go to the component level in the hierarchy. Once you are here, you need to go down to the three-dot menu, which is next to the point name, and select Add Point from the resulting drop-down menu. Similar to adding assets and components, you will receive a window in the middle of the screen to add point details. We first need to give the point a code and a naming reference. These references need to be clear and appropriate for the particular data point you would like to add. The next drop-down menu is for point type. There are 6 types of points that we can add to Machine Sentry. They are process, vibration, oil sample, visual inspection, lubrication, and thermal. You need to select the point type that is applicable to the data you would like to collect. Some of these are self-explanatory, but process, for example, will allow you to enter numerical data for any particular parameter you require. Visual inspections allow us to enter inspection and watchkeeping information for any asset or any other requirements you may need within the business. There are a number of standard templates built into the platform just for this, but we can also create bespoke inspections, which we will cover in another video. The final field here is the template, and this differs depending on the point type you are trying to add. Pay close attention to the description of each template, although any settings can be changed once the point has been added. Finally, click Add and the point will appear in the hierarchy. One of the key features we have now added to Machine Sentry is customizable dashboards. There are numerous dashboards throughout the platform, showing various types of information, and you can also create custom dashboards, which we will detail in another video. However, most of the dashboards that you first see are the default Machine Sentry dashboards. These change depending on whether you're on the home page or within a particular site. Starting at the home page, we have 2 default dashboards. The first is the Home dashboard. This shows any news updates from AVT on the left-hand side, along with tips and tricks to help our users get the most out of the platform. Alongside this, we have statistical data on the sites, asset and measurements that have now been monitored and collected, along with KPI indicators that you may be familiar with if you have used Machine Sentry before, namely asset health, schedule status, and points analysed. The KPIs summarize all the sites that you currently have access to. There is also the T-Wave and Gateways dashboard, which will alert you to any connection problems if you have an MSO or gateway installed on site. Once we move into a site, we start at the top level of the hierarchy, the site level. This gives us details about that particular site, along with the KPIs we see on the homepage, but they have been recalculated just for the site in question. Cost-benefit analysis data will also be displayed here, which is pulled from the action notes to give an overview of how much money we have saved with our timely maintenance procedures. You will also see a summary of fixed sensor connections, asset monitored status, and a summary of point scheduling status in pie chart form. This dashboard is consistent all the way through the hierarchy until we get to asset level. Once we reach an asset, the default dashboard will change to show a summary of the last set of data that was collected, a summary of recent analysis, any documentation that has been added to the asset, and if there are any fixed sensors attached to it. This is also applicable to components, but the dashboard changes for a final time once we hit the point level. For all point types other than vibration, you will see details at the top, then trend graphs for that particular dataset, which you can use to quickly assess the data collected. You will also see the asset review summary. However, if this was a vibration point, you would see the velocity spectra, time waveform, and the acceleration spectra. This is accompanied by ADA details and a summary of all readings collected against that point. The ability to create customized dashboards is a new feature to Machine Sentry to enable our users to quickly access data that is relevant to them as an individual. Each dashboard created is for an individual user, but can also be shared across the site where it has been created. Custom dashboards can be created at the homepage or at any level in the hierarchy once you enter a site. To start the process, you firstly need to unlock the dashboard using the padlock as you can see here. Once clicked, you can then create new dashboards or edit any existing custom dashboards. The default dashboards are not editable. Once unlocked, you will notice the plus button that appears at the end of the dashboard line. If you click here, it will open a new custom dashboard and present the user with a blank window. In the top right hand corner of this blank window, there is an Add button which will open a drop down menu. This will give the user a list of widgets that can be added to populate a custom dashboard, and this list will change depending on the level you are at in the hierarchy, or if you are on the home page. For this example, we will firstly add Asset Help. Once a widget is within a dashboard, it can be resized using the corners of the widget to click and hold and then move your cursor. Or you can move the widget around using the toolbar at the top of the widget. As you add more widgets, you just need to resize and move them around accordingly to design that you desire. If we go back to the dashboard toolbar and click on the three-dot menu for this dashboard, here you can rename to an appropriate title, duplicate this dashboard, hide it from view, or even remove it if it is no longer required. Once you are happy with your dashboard, hit the save button in the top right and then lock the toolbar again to avoid any accidental changes. Another big feature change to Machine Sentry is the introduction of grids for various areas of the software, including assets, components, points, actions, and routes. Grids allow users to easily navigate them in order to find the information they are looking for. For example, let's start by looking at the assets grid. Here we can use the search bar to search for any asset name or code that may appear in the grid below. We can also use the filters on the right hand side to reduce the number of visible assets to our needs. The example here showing only assets that are currently in alarm status. The menu button to the right of the filters allows the user to change which data columns they see within this view. As with all of Machine Sentry, each user has their own unique view. Selecting any of the headers at the top of each column will sort the column in question, and you can also order the columns to your liking in the menu and change column widths. All grids will auto filter based on the level that they first select in the hierarchy tree. These features are consistent across all other grid views such as components, points, actions and routes as mentioned earlier. If you go into the administration section, you can see the same applies to both users and devices in use on site. The routes feature in Machine Sentry enables users to create specific routes for data collection across their site. The reasons for this may vary, from simply having a specific route that is walked through an area, or for the purposes of fault finding, the level of customization can cater to all needs. Firstly, we go to the site and ensure the site level is selected. The routes feature is not accessible at any other level in the hierarchy. Once we select the routes button, you are able to either add a new route or edit or delete an existing route using the buttons in the top left of the window. If you use the search bar below, you can also search for an existing route. First, we will add a new route, so start by clicking the Add button. You will first be asked for a name and category for the route, so choose an appropriate name and then give it an equally appropriate category. The category field will create a new category from whatever you type if one does not already exist, to help you organize your routes as you create them. Once you click the Add button, the middle window will disappear and you will be prompted to drag and drop items from the tree to add them to the route. You can now take any level in the hierarchy and drag it over to the top of the window on the right. This will add every point below that level to the route individually. We would recommend doing this from asset level and below, as the higher up could end up adding hundreds of points at once and be much more difficult to manage. In this example, I will drag over an asset. You will see it lists the points individually, and from here you can reorder the points by dragging them above or below each other, or simply deleting them using the X button at the end of the line. Continue to add other assets or components as you require. Once you are happy with the route, you can then allocate that to an individual who has access to Machine Sentry. Finally, hit save in the top right hand corner of the window. The route will then be added to the mobile application upon synchronization. We have slightly changed how we run reports in the new version of Machine Sentry. Throughout the portal, you will now notice the report button is available in the top right hand corner of the screen. As previously, data within the report is dependent on the level that you are currently at within the hierarchy. We will enter our site first of all, and for this example we will go down to our area level. Then we go to the report button and select Area Reports. The window that appears in the middle of the screen will give all report options available at that particular level. So select the report you wish to run, and in this example we will choose the Reliability Service report. The options that follow will be dependent on the report selected, but will usually consist of a date range, asset criticality, asset categories, report ordering, and available selections, etc. Select the options required from each of these sections using the tick boxes provided and selecting the Next button. Finally, when you come to the last set of options, you will be prompted to generate the report. Once you hit generate, you will notice a loading icon appear on the reports button in the top right of your window. Your report will generate in the background, allowing you to continue working whilst the report is being written. Once it is complete, it will display a number, and then you can go to the reports button, click on the report, which will be named after the level in the hierarchy you choose to run from, and the name of the report selected. The reports button will then hold the last 5 reports that you generated. The other features we have introduced into the grid function of Machine Sentry is the ability to batch update and also a new way to run exports. Firstly, we will look at batch update. Previously in Machine Sentry, each item such as assets would have to be individually updated, but now we are able to do this for a range of items as required. In this example, we will look at an asset batch update. Let's navigate to our site and then over to the Assets tab, which can be accessed at any level in the hierarchy. You will notice the Batch Update button at the top of the window. However, it will be currently inaccessible, as we first need to select which assets this applies to. Utilizing the filters and search functions here from our grids navigation video can help to quickly identify which assets are required. To select, simply tick the box on the left-hand side of each asset and then select Batch Update. Within this window, you can update which fields you see. However, we firstly need to tick the fields we wish to update, and we will use Asset Category as an example. Once ticked, you can then edit the field accordingly. We will choose Redundant Equipment. Once you are happy with the changes, hit save and the changes will apply to each selected asset or item. Exporting in Machine Sentry takes the filters into account. For looking at the current view of assets, if we select the export button, we get a drop down of all the formats we can export in. Select the one that is most appropriate and the portal will export the data from the selection you see. If we use a status filter, so we will select just the assets in alarm, the export will then only export the assets you see when this filter is applied. The Actions table in Machine Sentry is accessible from the site level of the hierarchy down to asset level but no further, as actions are assigned at the asset level. Once we are within our site, we need to select the Actions table from the toolbar at the top of the window. As default, this will display all action notes in the database that are visible at this hierarchy level and below. From here, you can use the search and filter options available at the top of the window to easily find the action note that you are looking for. These work in the same way as all other grids in Machine Sentry. Please see the grids navigation video for reference. Just below this, you have options to add, open, edit, delete, or batch update actions. We will start by firstly using the hierarchy to come down to the asset we want to add the action against. Whilst this isn't necessary, it automatically assigns the action note to the asset in question, so it is best practice. Then we can click the Add button. Now we just need to fill in the appropriate fields accordingly, and we can start by selecting priority. Follow this up by adding the detail of the action. Let's say we found a bearing defect. Maintenance type allows us to categorize how this issue was found, so we can accompany this with ticking what implications this may have on production, quality, reliability, safety, energy, or environment. Estimated labour allows us to estimate how much time in labour hours we may need to spend on this particular action. We can also allocate a particular action to an individual, however they must have access to Machine Sentry to do so, along with an allocated time so we can work towards a deadline. Finally, we have the option to add an action note schedule against the action, again so we can track progress in terms of time. Once we hit save, the action notes will be available to edit or delete. If we highlight this and click edit, you will see there are a vast number of options we can add to any action note. Once the work has been performed, we can fill in the work performed field along with fault type and fault reason fields to give a full overview of the exact detail of the fault in question. A new feature in action notes is the ability to add evidence. If we move to the evidence tab, you will see a button to add evidence. If we click this, we can add either a measurement or an image. The image will require you to add an existing image from your PC or laptop, but if we click measurement, you will be asked to add a supporting data measurement from within Machine Sentry, and whether you want to display the trend or the image along with it. Workpack allows you to add what may be needed to perform the action required, such as tools, spares or labour. Cost avoidance allows us to track the difference between planned and unplanned costs when it comes to this particular failure, and will give us an overall cost saving on this asset over time. After all fields have been completed, clicking close action will fill in the close by field along with the closed on field based on who is logged in and the current date and time. Analysis has changed in the next generation Machine Sentry platform. We have changed the spectral view into a full dashboard and have added waterfall plots so you can easily analyze data over time. We start by entering our site and moving through the hierarchy all the way to point level. Once here, you can start by looking at the Details tab, which will give us point details at the top of the window, along with the appropriate trend graphs for that point. If we move across to Readings, you will see all the numerical data values that have been collected against each parameter that is required for that point. They will be highlighted in green, yellow or red in line with the alarm limits on that particular point. You will also be able to see who collected that data, how long the data took to collect, and which device was used via its serial number. If we move along to the spectra, you will see that as default we have 3 spectral graphs available. The large on the left shows velocity spectra, the top right the acceleration waveform, and the bottom right the acceleration spectra. We will focus on the velocity spectra in the top left and the buttons you see at the top of this widget. These buttons allow you to change what you see in this spectra. So currently a spectrograph and V are highlighted for spectra and velocity. If we change the spectrograph to the wave, we now have the waveform for velocity. If we look to the right at the A, V and D buttons, selecting A will give us acceleration, D displacement, and I will give us impacting. Moving along, the next set of buttons allow us to select which cursor we want to use within our spectra. The first option is no cursor. Then we have single cursor, and if you click it will hold the cursor in place and then unclick to be able to move it again. This is followed by the harmonic cursor. Again, click to hold the harmonics in place and unclick to release. We then have the sideband cursor and finally the baseline cursor. Again, clicking to lock the cursors in place and the offset accordingly. We then come to our zoom options. As default, you can zoom in the x-axis by clicking and dragging, and once you are done, double click to reset. The next button allows us to zoom in the y-axis, and we also have a free zoom so that you can zoom in both axes at the same time. Under the settings button, we are able to display log x and log y into the spectra, as well as being able to adjust averaging, high and low pass filters, and impact high pass filter. Our newest feature to analysis is the addition of waterfall plots. So if we move over to the waterfall table, we can see that it allows us to compare measurements over time. The first measurement in the graph we can select from the Readings tab, and then it will take us back however many measurements we specify in the Settings button. Within the settings, we can also change the angle and the depth of the waterfall, as you can see here. If we use the rainbow button, we can also differentiate the colours in the graph so we can easily identify different measurements.
Machine Sentry Next Generation.